On a Tuesday morning in November 2025, a quiet panic began in the banking halls of Seoul, South Korea. Customers walked into major banks like Shinhan and Kookmin, asking to exchange their depreciating currency for physical silver bars. But for the first time in modern history, the banks said no. They didn't say no because the government passed a law. They said no for a much more terrifying reason. They had no silver left to sell. What happened in Korea is not an isolated event. It is the first tremor of a global earthquake. The window to acquire physical silver at current prices is slamming shut. And the institutions that have suppressed its price for decades are now the ones desperately trying to hoard it. This is not a story about inflation. This is not a story about currency. This is a story about physics, about an industrial metal that is essential to modern civilization and is rapidly disappearing from the face of the earth. In this documentary, we will expose the solar panic that is draining global stockpiles, swirling vortex above them, sucking silver coins out of the ground. Or 16.9. We will explain why $100 per ounce is not a hype prediction, but a mathematical inevitability. And we will show you why the banks are being banned by reality from ever selling you cheap silver again. The countdown has begun. To understand why silver is about to explode, you must first understand why it has been kept so cheap for so long. For 50 years, silver has been the most manipulated asset on the planet. Why? Because silver is the people's money. Unlike gold, which is hoarded by central banks, silver is held by citizens. A high silver price is a direct threat to the fiat currency system because it signals a loss of faith in paper money. So, the financial establishment created a paper-silver market to suppress the physical price. On the COMEX and London exchanges, billions of ounces of silver are traded every day that do not exist. Banks like JP Morgan hold massive short positions, selling paper promises to drive the price down whenever physical demand rises. They call this taming the metals. We call it a fraud. The system worked perfectly for decades because the primary demand for silver was investment. When people got scared, they bought silver. When they felt safe, they sold it back to the banks. The metal just moved in a circle. But in the last 10 years, something fundamental has changed. The silver market is no longer driven by investors. It is driven by industry. And industry does not buy paper silver. They need the real thing. The suppression scheme is now colliding with a physical reality it cannot control. This is the beginning of the end of the manipulation. Welcome to the age of the industrial drain. Silver is not just a precious metal. It is the single most conductive element on the periodic table. It is the indispensable metal of the digital and green economy. You cannot build a smartphone without silver. You cannot build an electric vehicle without silver. But the real vampire sucking the world dry is the solar industry. Look at the physics of a solar panel. To turn sunlight into electricity, you need a conductor to move the electrons. Nothing works better than silver paste. For years, engineers tried to thrift out silver, using less and less per panel to save money. But then, the technology changed. The world demanded higher efficiency panels to meet net zero goals. The new technology, called TOPCon and HJT cells, is more efficient. But it requires 50% to 80% more silver per panel than the old models. This was a catastrophic miscalculation by the silver market. In 2023, the solar industry consumed roughly 190 million ounces of silver. By 2026, with the mandated explosion of solar farms globally, that number is projected to cross 300 million ounces. That is nearly 30% of the entire world's annual silver supply, gone into just one industry. And here is the critical part. Once silver goes into a solar panel, it is effectively gone forever. Recycling silver from solar panels is difficult, expensive, and rarely done. We are taking a precious, finite resource and burying it on rooftops and in deserts for 30 years. This is not a cycle. This is a one-way drain. Now add in the demand from the AI revolution. AI servers require massive amounts of power and high-speed connectors, all of which use silver. Add in the demand from 5G infrastructure. Add in the demand from the military for advanced weaponry. The industrial world is waking up to a terrifying realization. We don't have enough metal. This is the solar panic. It is the moment when industrial necessity overrides financial manipulation. Samsung and Tesla do not care about the COMEX paper price. They care about keeping their factories running. They will pay whatever it takes to secure physical inventory. And when they start buying, they drain the vaults. When demand for a product explodes, the normal economic response is to increase supply. If people want more apples, farmers plant more apple trees. But silver is not apples. Silver is a geological freak. You cannot just mine more silver because the price goes up. This is the concept of inelastic supply. 72% of the world's silver is not mined on purpose. It is a byproduct. It is found accidentally while miners are digging for lead, zinc, and copper. A copper miner does not care if silver is $30 or $100 an ounce. His mine is set up to maximize copper production. He cannot simply flip a switch and produce more silver. And what about the few primary silver miners that do exist? They have been starved of capital for a decade because of the price suppression. It takes 10 years to permit, build, and bring a new mine online. Even if silver hit $100 tomorrow, there would be no new significant supply until the mid-2030s. The world is now in its 5th consecutive year of a structural deficit. We are consuming more than we dig out of the ground. How have we survived so far? By draining above-ground stockpiles. The inventory at the LBMA in London and the COMEX in New York has plummeted to dangerous lows. The buffer is gone. The cupboard is bare. So what happens when the irresistible force of industrial panic meets the immovable object of inelastic supply? You get as violent upward repricing of the asset. You get a super spike. This brings us back to the banks in South Korea. They ran out because the physical market finally broke. The paper manipulation can only work when there is physical metal to back it up. When the metal is gone, the game ends. We are now entering the final phase, the squeeze. Right now, silver is trading in the low 30s. This is an artificial price that reflects the paper market, not the physical reality. The true value of silver, based on its scarcity and industrial necessity, is vastly higher. Many experts believe the initial repricing will take it past its all-time high of $50 and straight to $100 an ounce. At $100, silver is still cheap compared to gold, but it is life-changing for those who hold it. This creates a brief, fleeting window of opportunity for the retail investor. You can still buy physical silver today. Online dealers still have stock. Local coin shops still have inventory. But as the industrial panic accelerates in 2026, that window will close. We will see more banks ban sales. We will see exorbitant premiums on physical bullion. We will see out-of-stock signs everywhere. Eventually, physical silver will become unobtainium for the average person. It will be reserved for industry and strategic government stockpiles. The question you have to ask yourself is this: do you want to be holding paper money that is being printed into oblivion? Or do you want to hold the essential metal that powers the future? The suppression is ending. The shortage is real. The window is closing. Take action before the banks lock the doors for good.